Hey everybody. So, doing some new art stream, right? I've got the painting that I started yesterday on stream up and ready to go. Hey Flort. So, I am gonna go ahead and start adding some detail. So, first thing I'm gonna do is turn on this light. Might drown it out a bit. We'll see. It's not too bad. Maybe if I turn it away just a bit. Does that help? Just try and get enough light to do art. That looks a little bit washed out. We'll just leave this one off. But I will turn on this one behind me to help me out. Okay. So, we're going to be adding details today to this. So I've got my lovely palette, which is, yes, just a black plate. And I'm going to start putting some of these lovely colors onto it and going from there. So I think I'm going to start with the background and come into the foreground. Though some of the details I may have to do foreground to background. So we'll see what happens. Okay. So for this, I'm just going to get some blue, purple, and white on my palette. And for this, I've got Aegean blue, sky blue, titanium white, and a little bit of violet. The music in the background is from Pretzel Rocks, so if it's too loud or too quiet or whatever, just let me know. I will adjust as needed. So again, I know I talked about this yesterday, but there are a couple of things on each of these paint tubes. Like, I don't know if you can see them. Maybe tilt it this way. Bring it closer to the camera. But there are some pluses, and then there are some little boxes on each of these little paint tubes. And what that is the pluses are for light fastness, and the little box, which on most of these is solid, is for opacity. And if it's a solid box, it's more opaque. And if it is like a half-filled box, it is more transparent. Like you can see on this yellow one, if I get it close enough. Focus! Maybe if I shade it. If you can see it, I don't know if you can. Neither. These are not oils or acrylics. It's actually gouache. Gouache is a water-based paint, similar to watercolor, but they're opaque, which is different from watercolors. So, quite interesting. And I've got 2 pots of water off to the side, as well as a drink. One to dip the brush in and get some water for mixing the paint and using it, and the other is for washing my paintbrushes. So, straight out of the tube, you have to add a little bit of water and get it to like almost a milky consistency or like a cream consistency before using it. If you don't, it can actually be an issue. Yeah. There's 1 cup for drinking, 1 cup for paint, water, and the other one for washing brushes. So, okay. And you need to wipe the paintbrush quite often, so I shamelessly have just like a wad of tissue paper or like paper towels in my lap for wiping my brush. Oh, hopefully keeping it out of the way. Um, Let me know if the music gets distracting. I think it's okay, but we'll see. I might have put these a little bit close on the palette. Especially since we're going to be mixing the paint colors. And see, this is kind of like the consistency you want. It's like barely going to drip off the brush. And you see that lovely little drop. So that's really what you want out of these paints before you put them down. Lovely. Okay. And the reason there's a little gap on my paper is actually because the paper shrinks and expands based on how wet it is. And because yesterday the paper was very wet, the expansion caused it to have some issues. Okay. Yeah, you want the paint to be like just the right thickness. You don't want it to be too thick or too thin when applying. The good thing about these paints is that even though they're not artist quality, they're like student quality or, you know, enthusiast quality or hobbyist quality, whatever you want to call them, is that they're actually pretty consistent for gouache paint. trick is that gouache actually dries much lighter than you would think. So where it might look dark when you first apply it, it's actually going to dry much lighter. And that's true for most gouache paints, but there are some that kind of do the opposite. So you really want to do like a light fastness test before going in and doing things with your paint. You want to really know your medium before using it, obviously. Great thing about paintings is it's your own interpretation of reality. You don't really have to adhere to anybody else's interpretation as you paint. Okay. I think I like where this background is going. Need more water. Okay, so now I'm going to wipe my brush and I'm going to do a dry brushing technique with a different brush. So what I've been using right now is, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a flat brush. Okay. So it's got a very thin tip. This is a Royal and Lang nickel. They're some of my favorite ones. These specifically are for acrylics or oils, but they work good with gouache because it's a thicker medium than watercolor is. And they are synthetic. They're not natural bristle brushes, but I do have some natural bristle as well. Yes, very flat bristles. So now I'm actually going to switch to a more detailed brush, and I'm going to use some of this white for dry brushing. And I don't know if you can see this, but this is a kind of very small brush. This is a number 2. So it's kind of small and wonky. And we're going to be using this one for some dry brush details with a slightly off-white color. I actually need to make this paint thinner for what I'm trying to do. And you don't want to get the paint too thin, because then it can start to not bind together as well. And you just want to make sure that you don't have that happen. Now, unlike acrylic, once you set down gouache, very similar to watercolor, it can come back up. So you don't really want that to happen either. And if you overwork the paint, you end up with something very muddy. You don't really want that. Okay. I apologize, like, I am getting very close to this, because I want to make sure that I am doing what I need to the painting. So if I get in the way, I apologize right now for putting my head or hair in the way of your viewing of my painting. It happens. And here I'm just building up like, kind of like a cloud texture. Keeping with the same sort of brush strokes that I had a moment ago. Kind of tie it all in. Fair warning, there are times during this stream where I will probably mute my microphone so that I can use the hairdryer that is sitting behind me to dry the paint on the painting. So, I apologize beforehand. And you'll notice I'm going into the green area and the yellow area with this, because this is actually going to be built up slowly. Wonderful thing about gouache is that you can build up layers that are slightly more transparent versus opaque using different thicknesses of paint. Okay, I think that's good for now. And see, does gouache have a texture to it? So, acrylic has an interesting texture, right? It's not quite smooth, but it's not quite like matte. It's somewhere in between, kind of like a satin or sateen finish. Gouache dries very, very, very matte. It's, like, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's a very, very matte texture. It's not reflective at all. Some are more reflective than others, and there is a rating for that as well, as you can look at the bottles to kind of determine. But for the most part, very, very matte and very dry, like almost like a chalkboard finish when you actually mess with it. So, next up, let me figure out what I want to do. I think I'm going to go for some of this rock texture down here. because it uses similar colors to the sky, so I can actually utilize some of these blues and purples and whites that I have. But I am going to add in a little bit of sap green and brown. Oop. And, or burnt umber, pardon. This will allow me to get a little bit of variation for the rock face. And you don't have to use, like, much of this paint. Like, I'm putting out, like, about a pea-sized blob, maybe a little bit bigger. That's probably actually too much paint. But we'll see. For this, I'm going to go back to my Royal Langnickel flat brush. So I'm kind of distracted just playing around with getting the right color on my palette right now. We'll see. That's about right. So from here, I actually want to lighten this. And that means some white. A little bit more brown. It's not quite thick enough. More water. Or not quite thin enough, pardon. Okay, I think I've got that to the proper thickness. Now to add some detail. Okay, that looks pretty good for a start. Now let's try over here. Okay. Okay. It's a good start over there. I know this may not look much different between like what was there and what is there now, but as it dries, I promise you it will change quite a bit. It is a lighter and more vibrant, not as desaturated shade than what I used before. And we're actually going to bring more light to it by adding white to the color. And filling in more parts. And try to add some more cool tones to it, using a little bit of blue and green. The green just helps desaturate it, really. Gives it more of a grayish hue. You can actually kind of see it here. More of a, like, a gray color compared to what I had previously. See the difference? So, that goes on next. We want this to be kind of in areas that are hit by light. Okay. Okay. Added some more detail there. Yes, go get oatmeal. Severance. Okay, so I've never seen it, or at least I don't think I have, but I can go and watch it, right? Okay. The art piece is starting to look more and more like an art piece, y'all. Let's get some more of this Aegean blue. And some of this green. Okay. More green. So when I originally made this piece, I added like this large swath of yellow, and I'm not sure if I really like it, but we're gonna go with it and see what happens. It's a little thick. Add some more water. Okay. might need a different brush for this. One second. Let me wash off this brush. We'll do another one. Okay, let's try a round brush for this. Give me a little bit different results. More natural kind of shapes for filling in some of this bush. Okay. And you can see here that the underpainting is actually quite important because the bits that come through from underneath do give a bit of depth to what we're doing. And we do still need to add some depth to the rocks, but they need to fully dry. Okay, thanks, Blurps. And this kind of sets the stage also for what the painting will look like in the end. And, you know, at this stage, we probably don't need to be, like, so precise because we are going to add more details and come back later to these areas. Okay. That probably looks like a good start for that bush. Make sure our paint is still good for the other bush. Okay. Once we get this underpainting going for these bushes, maybe we can work some on the tree and what we want to happen with that. And, you know, with paintbrushes, you kind of just want the brush strokes to be free. You don't want to repeat the same shape unless that's what you're going for, like kind of like what I did with the sky. But especially like with leaves, you kind of just want to keep it free, loose shapes. Almost kind of like squiggles.
All right, let's bring that beat back.
And again, gouache dries darker or lighter depending on what you're using. You can see that with the rocks, it dried lighter. But with the paint I'm using for the trees, it's kind of a wash. It's somewhere in between. It's a little bit darker, going on than it is dry, but they're almost the same shade. It's close. Okay, that looks pretty good for the base layer there. So for the tree, I want more of like grass green shade as the base. Less blue, a little bit more yellow. Might actually have to add a little bit of the other green that I have, which is sap green versus seaweed. Sap green is definitely greener or a brighter shade. We might even have to add a hint of yellow. We'll see. Since this is the base layer, I need to desaturate it a bit. I kind of like this shade. Okay, so we're gonna go with this. So let's see. So, this is kind of like a calm down period for me. I was playing Dying Light 2 earlier, and I am at like the very end of the game, and I keep dying against Walt. It's kind of annoying. So I decided that art was a little bit more chill and could bring me back into a good mood after dying repeatedly in game. Okay, a good base layer for the tree. So I have been going for a little over an hour now, and this is how far I've gotten. Obviously, there's still a lot more to do, but I've been kind of doing it slow as kind of like a chill and see where it'll go, because this is not from a picture. I'm not using a you know, reference. This is just from my mind. So sometimes when you paint from your mind, it's a bit slower than if you had a reference. Not just that, but if you're painting from imagination, it can be hard to get things right. So taking it slow can kind of prevent that and help the process a bit. Also, because it is gouache and it does layer, building up these interesting shapes and features and then coming back in and adding more shapes and features later really gives the, you know, image depth. And we'll be doing that slowly over time with this image. I'm still not sure about this yellow area. I might do something different with that. So we'll just have to wait and see. For now, I am going to let this dry. And we will do another layer momentarily. So I'm actually going to mute the stream mic. So you'll have to excuse me for a moment. And I will be back shortly. Okay, I am back. Sorry about the hairdryer yet again. So now what I need to do, restick my washi tape first off, is come in and start adding yet more details. And I really need to decide what to do with this yellow spot, like I was saying. I was thinking some sort of like glowing something or other, like a rock right here, in like a clearing with this water leading up to it, and the rock would be emanating a glow, which would kind of lead to like a backlighting for this area and like a lighting across the water. I am not sure yet if that is really what I want to do, so we'll see what happens. Y'all, I just realized this is really not in focus, and I'm not sure how to get it more in focus. Maybe that? Come on. Focus. I'm not sure if it's the lighting. Let me adjust. Okay. Hey, Saucy Moon, how are you doing? Right now, I am just finished drying the second layer of paint, and I'm about to go in and add some more details. So, we'll see what happens. Okay. So, Saucy, are you a artistic person, would you say? And I know it's a little bit boring. Oh, thank you, but I'm just mixing up paints. Yeah, I'm actually doing pretty good. Like I was telling Blorps earlier, for the most part, I decided to do some art because, like, I'm stuck in Dying Light 2 at, like, the last battle. I don't know if you played. And it was kind of frustrating, so this is kind of just chill time to recover from that. I need some more white. No, almost dropped the cap. Don't want to do that. But yeah, it's been a Saturday. At least the internet's working. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I am providing some highlights and backlights for this yellow section in the foliage of these bushes and the tree. Because what I'm going to do is kind of put like a glowing item in the background. I'm actually going to bring in this ground here. Hey, what's up, Sam? Yeah, I am just adding in more details to the painting today. And primarily what I'm doing is I'm adding kind of like some highlights and underlights for the foliage and the tree for this area here, which is going to be like this glowing stone thing like right here. And that's what's going to be providing like this yellow glow. The great thing about gouache is like you can really layer it up. Hey, what's up, Prometheus? Thanks y'all for joining. try and get a little bit more yellow, I think, and I'm going to come in here with some details. Lurking while being on a Stardew. Dude, Stardew is so fun. But I think I've only ever played to like year 4. Should probably play it more. Though, right now, I will say, I'm trying my hardest to get through Dying Light 2. Just not very good at it. Okay. I think this is the right shade. Might need a little bit more white. The thing about gouache, you know, is it does dry either lighter or darker depending on the paint. Some of them dry lighter, some of them dry darker, some are opaque, some are transparent, and like getting that balance is so important. Also, getting the paint thickness right is so important. How is everybody doing on this Saturday night anyways? At 11:04. I know this is probably like a little light to see on stream, so I apologize. Still trying to get the lighting right for painting. Nice. Finals for what? College, high school, specific class? Nice. Windows systems and management. You know, I actually work in IT, so I feel for you. I really do. Um, so my job right now is I am officially a systems engineer. However, what I really do, my day job is as a scrum master. So I lead agile development teams, mostly development teams. So quite fun and interesting. My husband is also in IT, so we get to tell all the fun horror stories.
It's not exactly clear whether they even truly exist or could be shown to in the physical universe. If they do, if one day physics finds a use for them, that's great. But if not, that's great too.
Like, what's your primary interest with IT? Are you trying to do like systems administration? You trying to do like more of the development route, cybersecurity? Oh yes, nice, cybersecurity. Yeah, I have a ton of friends who are in the Nova Hackers. So if you ever need a hookup, we actually do Grumpy Hackers like every other Wednesday. It's a stream in which like some of the big names in red teaming in the area of Virginia. I don't know if you're in Virginia, but I'll assume. Um, like a lot of the big names in Northern Virginia for red teaming get together, and I am just the voice at the opening of it. But we do the stream for a few hours, and it's a lot of fun. We just kind of get together and talk about general stuff that has happened in cybersecurity for the past 2 weeks, and have a good time together. But if you ever want to ask questions, like, they're definitely the people. I don't know if you've ever looked at Nova Hackers. Hey, that's all good. Like, I'll be honest, most of my learning is done independently. Like, I didn't go to school for what I do, but I find that learning independently is how I learn best. And with IT, like, that's perfectly fine because a lot of the stuff is going to be out of date from, books and stuff. But my buddy Mubix, or Rob Fuller, he does like a lot of the MACCDC stuff. So if you ever are interested in that, like, just let me know. And I got the hookup for that. There is a cybersecurity Discord that I used to help manage. I left for like creative reasons, we'll say, but really like I didn't like one of the other admins. And they're actually really good. They're like a teaching they're like a teaching Discord primarily, and they're called Dead Pixel Sec. So you can look them up. It's led by the Blind Hacker, and it's primarily just like teaching people all about cybersecurity, and it's just like a kind of cool place to chill and make friends and ask questions. So this tree is kind of like in the backdrop, but like being heavily illuminated. So it's much lighter than a lot of the surrounding trees. And the great thing about gouache is, like acrylic, it blends. Hmm. Okay. So, I'm about to bring out the blow dryer again. I am going to mute my stream mic, so I will be back in just a second, so I don't blow out your eardrums with the hair dryer. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully that didn't scare anybody. Um, I hope that I remembered to mute that correctly and that it was quiet. Okay. Oh, now I should probably work more on the rocks because they're actually going to be covered over with some of the foliage from these bushes. And potentially we might want to go ahead and do this tree trunk so that we can get the roots where we need them. But I think I'm going to do the rocks first. It's important to wipe your brush often. Make sure you get as much paint off of it as possible. I've got 2 pots of water. One for rinsing the brush and cleaning it, and the other one, which is the secondary rinse slash water for adding to the paint to thin it up enough to use. Okay. So these rocks are primarily like this purple color, kind of to match the sky a little bit, but I think I'm going to add a little bit more brown to them, give them a bit more contrast. So I've already got some brown on my palette, but I'm going to probably need some more. And some more purple, white, and blue as well for this. And for this one, I'm actually going to stop using my round brush. And I'm actually going to move back into my flat brush, which is this brush. And this is a Royal and Langnickel brush. rest of the Stygian. Okay. Need more water. Okay. Oh, goodness. I think I need a little bit more white. That's the thing with painting. It's like with watercolor and some other paints, you don't use as much white because you're really using negative space for the colors or for the highlights. But for oil, gouache, acrylic, you really end up using a lot of white. A little bit more brown. Okay. A little bit more white, and I think we've got the color. Okay. Okay. Got kind of some good variation going on with these rocks here. Define some of these. Like crags and stuff, that would be nice. Some nice little craggy rocks. Can get some shadow going under these bushes. And the trick here is I've gotten most of the paint off the brush. And they call this dry brushing. We're just kind of coming in here and adding some shade in the same color as the rock to the bottom of this bush. There we go. And here I'm just kind of like adding more detail into some of these stones. Just trying to make them nice and complex. So how many others on here are interested in, you know, art of any sort? Do you do any art yourself? Drawing, painting, sculpting, digital, photography? And here I am just trying to, like I said, add more contrast and detail into these rocks. And also to the undersides of these bushes. Okay, so with that, I think I might call it here for tonight. I've been going for almost 2 hours, and that's quite a lot of time to be painting. But I will stay on to talk if y'all give me just a moment. I will take a quick break, and then when I come back, we can go ahead and, you know, do something else maybe. So I will be right back, and we'll take a 5-minute break. Come back at about, like, I don't know, 11:40. Be right back, everybody. Okay, so I'm back a little bit earlier than expected. Hi. So I'm just taking a break, letting this dry. Might play a game. But for now, I am good just talking. So, let's see. What do I've got on here? Games are the best. So, okay, so I've been stuck on Dying Light 2. Not gonna play that. What do I want to do? So I've been wanting to replay Infra. Maybe I could do that. Let me... Has anybody here ever played Infra? Like, it's a lot of fun. I don't know if it's your jam or not. It's kind of like a puzzle walking simulator, like limbic space sort of thing. It's an older game, but like this is some of the, you know, scenery that's in it. You don't really see a lot of people, but it is kind of creepy at times. Basically, and let me get to the store page so you can kind of see some about it. So basically, you are a civic engineer or structural analyst, and you are basically given a job where you have to go and inspect a couple of places. One is a dam, another is a tunnel complex, and you end up getting stuck down there and having to fight, well, not really fight, but figure out your way out. And there's just like this crumbling infrastructure in this kind of, I guess, Nordic country. It's, I guess, set in what could be Sweden. It is by a Swedish manufacturer. So, when did this come out? 2016. So it is older, but it is a lot of fun. Let's see. For just chill, we could play Dorf Romantic or Islanders. Both of those are kind of fun little games. For things that'll make you cry, we could always play Life is Strange. There's a couple of things also that I haven't played. To the Moon was rough on the feels. I could imagine that. I've not played it, but I've seen it for sale. I just have not bought it yet. But I do love those, you know, story-based games. Tell Me Why was tough on the feels, if you've not played that. Paradise Lost was an interesting one that was also kind of tough on the feels and was very disturbing. It's set in like a alternate history where World War II went on longer than it originally did, and the Germans won. I sometimes like to cry for games, sometimes I don't, but I love when a game has a good story, even if it's not a super sad story. Like, for instance, where is it? One of my favorite books, and you know, you might be able to see behind me if I go to the large screen, is actually Call of Cthulhu. And I've got like a bunch of Cthulhu memorabilia back here. But I could also read everybody a really creepy bedtime story. Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with Lovecraftian horror. I don't know. Just something. If you've never read it, this is a great one. Yep, there we go. So it is a picture book of Dagon. And it's great. It's, one sec. Done in the style of Dr. Seuss, for instance. Yep. The entire book is done like this, and it's great. I also have Call of Cthulhu for beginning readers. And I could also go through that. So, friends, if you would like a bedtime story, I could definitely do that. I have been told I have a good reading voice. Part 1. And I'll go to my larger screen for this. The Horror in Clay. Back in late 26, when my great uncle died, I discovered the research he wanted to hide. And actually, I am going to adjust this. Bedtime at 6 a.m.? Well, what time is it there for you? Here it's almost midnight. For my painting, I had clipped the screen, so I'm just fixing it. Oh yeah, everybody was up late for that BIOS outage. Very late. You would think people would be in bed earlier during an internet outage. Okay. Is that a little bit easier to see now, the full picture? Back in late 26, when my great uncle died, I discovered the research he wanted to hide. Over time, he'd uncovered much more than he should. He'd have kept it all secret, if only he could. This way. But Professor George Angel has met with his fate, and exactly what killed him has caused some debate. The physicians have claimed, there's no reason to doubt, that his lengthy walk home caused his heart to give out. This way. There we go. The more sinister truth I have heard people say, he was shoved by a sailor who stood in his way. But my poor Uncle George, he was really too old to survive such a bump on a hill in the cold. Shortly after his death on that hill by the sea, the professor's belongings were given to me. I was sorting through all of his research one day when I found the monstrosity made out of clay. It was called by a sculptor named Wilcox one night, when more sensitive folk endured horrible sights. The young sculptor was puzzled by what he had made, by the script and the creature his carving displayed. So he sought out an expert who'd know what they meant, who'd explain his mad visions and where his mind went. It was a fortune that brought him to Angle's front door. You see, Angle had seen such a creature before. The professor urged Wilcox to try and recall all the things he had dreamed of, no matter how small. When the sculptor then coughed up the sounds that he'd heard, it confirmed something quite supernatural occurred. The professor requested a journal be kept that the sculptor could update each night that he slept, and the dreamer recorded the things he had seen. For the whole month of March was the nightly routine. But on April the 2nd his diary stopped when into unconsciousness Wilcox had dropped. I believed it was probably some kind of hoax that my uncle fell victim to Wilcox's jokes. For a time I was willing to let it all pass until later I read of Inspector Legras. Part 2. The Tale of Inspector Legras. And for this, I'm actually going to get my little figure. The figure Legras saw. What's that? I'm a nerd. I know. When Legras met with experts who hiked to explore, he presented a thing they had not seen before. This way. He was looking for answers but got none at all until Webb raised his hand at the back of the hall. He had seen something like it a long time ago. It was worshipped in Greenland by strange Eskimo. There he is. He went on to reveal where his knowledge was gained. He'd encountered a cult, the inspector explained. They had told him the meaning of the words they'd been screaming in his house at Relay. Dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. In a New Orleans swamp, less than 1 year before, he had broken that cult in the name of the law. When some people who lived near that swamp disappeared, the police had been called, and the worst had been feared. There were rumors of crimes being kept out of sight in the heart of the swamp in the midst of the night, so Legras had arranged for a squad of brave men to accompany him to the maniac's den. The policemen took care to avoid certain trails, as the locals had told them some terrible tales. They were warned of a lake and its polypus thing, to which cultists at midnight would crazily sing. When Legras and his men had uncovered the place, they discovered the worst of the whole human race. The policemen had paused to recover their breath. All the kidnapping victims had been put to death. With the cultists locked up, by the end of the day, the police had to know why they'd acted that way. Then a cultist named Castro had spoken with glee when describing a city lost under the sea. Yeah, Legras totally went to Twitter, fucker. Like, the slime of human beings. I'm on there, but whatever. He believes that great old ones who lie underground will remain there until that lost city is found. The great Cthulhu once led them across outer space when they flew here to Earth from some faraway place. There he is, sleeping. They have slept for millennia, Castro had said, but their dreaming confirms that they're really not dead. When that city, named Relay, comes up from the deep, then Cthulhu will stir and give up his great sleep. Necronomicon. You'll find mention of this if you dare take a look inside Abdul al-Red's mysterious book. I will quote here verbatim for those who don't know what that mad Arab wrote such a long time ago. There is nothing that's dead which can eternal lie, because give it strange aeons, and even death may yet die. So Cthulhu's cult study the skies every night, knowing Relay will rise when the stars are just right. All the experts in Angle had taken an oath not to speak of that cult, nor encourage its growth. With the mad implications of what they had heard, they would research in secret and not say a word. Yeah, there we go. It was hard to believe all the things that I'd read. I still doubted a lot of what Wilcox had said. I had thought that perhaps the young sculptor had heard of that dark southern swamp and the crime that occurred. For my own peace of mind, I just had to be sure that it wasn't a prank, that it was something more. Ew. The light is a bit bright. When I'd spoken to Wilcox, he'd made it quite clear that the call of Cthulhu was something to fear. There we go. Then I went to see Castro, but Castro was dead, so I stopped in to see the inspector instead. When I spoke to Legrasse, I was lucky to find that he still had the cult in the back of his mind. I had started to think it would make my career if I published this stuff for the whole world to hear. That's where you went wrong. Jesus, what's wrong with you? Fretting the voice of Cthulhu. I believed I could research and then write a book, but with no further leads, there was nowhere to look. So I packed up my notes and I put them aside. It was only much later a clue was supplied. Part 3. The Madness from the Sea. I was studying rocks from all over the world when a sheet of old newsprint from Sydney unfurled. On that faded old page, a forgotten report told the tale of a schooner whose trip was cut short. Of 11 crew members, 10 failed to return, and the loss of the Emma had caused some concern. After meeting a yacht which had ordered them back, it appeared that the Emma fell under attack. When the Emma was sunk, there was nothing to do but seize the Alert and abandon her crew. Two weeks later in Sydney, a sailor arrived, but no other crewmen from the Emma had survived. The report said Johansen returned from the sea with an idol in hand, quite mysteriously. On the fate of his crew, he'd refused to say more. Then they died on an island they'd stopped to explore. The events had occurred in the very same week that young Wilcox's nightmares had been at their peak, so I tracked down Johansen to hear what he'd say, through New Zealand and Sydney and lastly Norway. Trying to get the book perfect. There we go. When Mrs. Johnson had come to his door, she explained that he died just a few months before. He had never revealed what had happened at sea, so she took out his logbook and gave it to me. He had written in English to help spare his wife from the terrible knowledge that ruined his life. In that book, he described the strange place he had seen, and I knew that to rely, the sailor had been. When the crew went ashore, they discovered a stair. So they climbed to the top just to see what was there. Then Johansen described how a door opened wide, and they heard something stir in the darkness inside. He recalled that they froze and that nobody spoke, so intense was their fear when... Cthulhu awoke. When Johansen and Bryden returned to the sea, they had jumped in their boat in an effort to flee. As Johansen prepared to escape in the yacht, he discovered the boiler was not very hot. When the sailors then learned that Cthulhu could swim, poor old Bryden went mad and the future looked grim. The alert started moving, but not very fast, and the creature drew closer each moment that passed. There was nothing to do but to steer with the wheel till Cthulhu's huge head was lined up with the keel. When the yacht pierced Cthulhu between its great eyes, the alert had survived, to Johansen's surprise. At the end of the logbook, I fearfully read that the monster was sighted, repairing his head. By the time they were rescued, poor Bryden had died, and Johansen was sitting with his eyes open wide. Then the rescue ship, Vigilant, sailed past the spot where the city once was, but by then it was not. I assume that Cthulhu resumed his great sleep at the heart of his city, way down in the deep. I discovered the sender of Wilcox's dreams, and I'm certain there's more to the cult than it seems. But the knowledge is more than just one man can take, and in knowing, I fear that my mind will soon break. Now I've told you these things so that you'll understand why I'm sealing them up, just as Angel has planned. Just remember the cultists are out there somewhere, keeping track of the secrets they don't want to share. Found among the papers of the late Francis Wayland Thurston of Boston. The end.
I think all art and imagination
So,
at some point leads you to think about things that aren't true.
thank you for watching.
It can be a great exercise for
We will do more artwork and another, nighttime. Yeah, they're really good. Do another nighttime reading. Probably tomorrow. Maybe not this late, because I got work tomorrow or Monday. Yes, Cthulhu. No, almost right. I think there's like one extra H behind the L. I think it's that. With that said, I am going to log off for the night. We've been streaming for about 2 hours and 16 minutes. So thank you everybody for joining. Thank you all for spending time with me, and I will see you all next time. Thank you. Have a great, wonderful, safe, lovely day. And be back. You too. See you later, Prometheus.